Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging headfirst into a moment that, honestly, feels pretty unprecedented on the global stage.
hmm
Picture this, if you will. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, he's standing there in front of international media, and he looks visibly deeply frustrated.
Right.
And he starts using openly abusive language
Yeah.
about Israel and Iran. Why? Because they're completely ignoring his ceasefire attempts.
Yeah, it's not just some off-the-cuff remark. It's this really stark public display of, well, maybe perceived powerlessness.
Exactly, a moment that kind of reshapes how we view American influence.
It's an extraordinary scene, absolutely. And it really throws a spotlight on a conflict that's just chaotic and escalating incredibly fast. Our sources, they really underscore the challenges the U.S. is facing trying to mediate something this volatile.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to try and unpack this whole scenario for you. We want to explore the maybe surprising reasons why this ceasefire failed so spectacularly,
Yeah, get into the hidden strategies at play.
and see how these sort of contradictory actions from global leaders are keeping everyone, as our sources put it, on the edge.
Right. And we're pulling this from a few places.
Yeah, we've got insights from a recent YouTube video transcript, various news reports, and even Trump's own social media. So it's a pretty raw, unfiltered look at this complex mess.
Okay, let's dive in.
So let's start right there with that really striking image. The president's outburst.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources describe Trump clearly frustrated, using language like, "what the F they are doing," about Israel and Iran.
Which is, that's a first for a U.S. president in that kind of public international setting, isn't it?
Completely. It's almost startling how blunt it is.
It immediately makes you ask, okay, why? Why such an extreme reaction?
Well, what do the sources say?
The source material makes it crystal clear. Both nations are just openly disregarding his ceasefire calls.
Right.
Remember those tweets? All caps. Practically shouting.
Oh, yeah. Israel, do not drop those bombs.
Yeah. And bring your pilots home and now. It really does read like, I don't know, a desperate plea.
Like a frustrated parent.
Mhm.
Or maybe a teacher whose class just refuses to listen.
Exactly that kind of vibe.
It's kind of astonishing to see unfold publicly. And the reality, while all this is happening,
Well, Israel's still bombing Tehran. Fighter jets are in the air even as these pleas are going out.
so this isn't just about tough talk or harsh language.
No, not at all.
The president's public impotence, you could call it,
Yeah.
it fundamentally reshapes how the world sees American power, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It signals this new era where maybe traditional diplomatic leverage is just being openly defied.
Which potentially empowers other players in the region.
Definitely. But, okay, this frustration over the failed mediation, it goes deeper.
Yeah, if we look beyond just the immediate ceasefire attempts,
Mm-hmm.
our sources point to a deeper game.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just about who fires the next missile. The ceasefire isn't holding because fundamentally it's about who gets the last punch.
Ah, the symbolic victory. Neither side wants to look like they back down first.
Exactly.
And what's really fascinating here is Iran's strategy, according to the sources. They apparently wanted to launch missiles after a ceasefire was declared,
After. Why after?
to stage a kind of victory parade, to show their people, look, we withstood the pressure from the U.S. and Israel. We're resilient.
Okay, that makes sense in a way. But how does that connect to the bigger picture? What was the real goal here for the U.S. and Israel?
Well, connecting the dots, the sources suggest the ultimate long-term objective wasn't just, stopping the fighting. It was regime change in Iran.
Right. Replacing the current leadership with someone more amenable.
Exactly. Pro-U.S., pro-Israel. It wasn't about total destruction, but a fundamental shift in who holds power in Tehran.
And we've seen this playbook before, haven't we?
We have. The sources mention parallels.
Like Pakistan, right, where a change led to a government nominating Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Mm-hmm. Or Syria, where a regime change resulted in a government much more aligned with Israeli interests.
So the goal was clearly to install leadership that wouldn't cause so many problems, quote unquote, for Israel and the U.S.
Precisely. But the crucial point here, the absolute key takeaway, is that this objective failed in Iran.
They couldn't pull it off.
Nope. That regime change didn't happen. And that failure, that's what sets the stage for all this increased frustration, this continued conflict.
It reveals the sort of strategic chess game underneath.
And why it's so entrenched. It goes way beyond just the immediate military stuff.
Okay, so that frustration bubbles up elsewhere too, right? Especially around Iran's nuclear program.
Oh, absolutely. The whole narrative around their nuclear ambitions seems to be, well, crumbling.
Probably so.
Iran is out there openly declaring their nuclear program is fine. They're saying it'll be restored, rebuilt.
And are these just Iranian claims?
No, that's the thing. Our sources, including Russian media, even the Times of Israel, they seem to corroborate this. They suggest Iran had backup plans, moved scientists, equipment.
So wait, how does that line up with what the Pentagon was saying earlier? Didn't they claim U.S. strikes had devastated Iran's nuclear program?
Exactly. There's a massive contradiction here, a real disconnect.
And Trump weighed in on this too.
Of course, another defiant, all-caps tweet, Iran will never rebuild their nuclear facilities.
Wow, so a direct clash between what the U.S. is asserting and what seems to be the reality, or at least Iran's public stance backed by others.
It's a stark contradiction. And it's not just, confusing. It actively erodes trust in international non-proliferation efforts, doesn't it?
Makes verification almost impossible.
Yeah, a diplomatic minefield. Trust becomes incredibly scarce.
Okay, moving into an even more unsettling area now. Our sources talk about these really serious allegations coming from Iranian media.
Which are?
That data from the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, was leaked.
Leaked data? What kind of data?
Including, apparently, information like the home addresses of Iranian nuclear scientists.
Wow. Okay, that's serious. And the allegation is?
According to these claims, this leaked data allowed Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, to carry out assassinations,
Resulting in?
the deaths of 14 Iranian nuclear scientists, according to the report cited.
14. That's chilling. And the source mentioned a parallel.
Yeah, intriguingly, it draws a parallel with India's past experience, apparently having lost some of their nuclear scientists under mysterious circumstances years ago,
It sort of reinforces the shadowy underbelly of the conflict.
where information itself is weaponized, raises huge questions about international intelligence, cybersecurity.
And just how far states might go in covert operations. It's pretty disturbing stuff.
And the stakes just keep climbing, don't they? Especially when nuclear weapons themselves get thrown into the conversation.
Yeah, this next part is genuinely shocking.
The sources highlight this statement from Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president.
Right. What did he say?
He openly suggested that Russia, or maybe even other countries like North Korea or Belarus, could supply nuclear bombs to Iran.
Just openly suggested it, supplying nuclear bombs.
Yeah, just put it out there.
Okay, wow. And Trump's reaction?
Furious, as you'd expect. He publicly called out Medvedev for using the N-word, nuclear, so casually.
And then threatened Russia?
Oh, yeah, via tweet again. Threatened Russia with America's nuclear submarines, calling them 20 years advanced, the strongest and the best.
A very Trumpian response. Did Medvedev back down?
Nope. According to the sources, he basically doubled down, reiterated his original stance, undeterred.
Good grief. This just highlights the terrifying possibility of nuclear proliferation, doesn't it?
And the incredibly casual way these threats are being thrown around in public now.
It raises the stakes in an already unstable region to, frankly, frightening level.
Just when you think it can't get any more complex or, frankly, unstable.
There's more.
There's another layer. Our sources reveal this perplexing twist. President Trump's sudden U-turn on oil policy regarding Iran.
A U-turn? How so?
He suddenly stated that China can now comfortably buy oil from Iran.
Comfortably, after all the sanctions threats.
Right? He even apparently expressed hope they'd buy U.S. oil, too. It's a complete head-spinner.
That directly contradicts previous U.S. policy, which threatened global sanctions against anyone buying Iranian oil.
Totally.
The expert cited in our source material had a pretty stark observation about this kind of thing.
What was that?
That when the, quote, most powerful man in the world appears to rest his mind but not his mouth, it creates huge global problems, complete chaos.
That phrase, rest his mind but not his mouth, that really paints a picture.
It's a profound illustration, isn't it? How the personal stability or lack thereof and the communication style of one leader can ripple outwards and directly impact international relations.
And meanwhile, the situation on the ground, still volatile.
Extremely. Israel continues strikes.
Yeah.
The world is still on the edge.
People fearing Iranian retaliation, maybe a long war if Iranian leadership gets targeted directly.
Exactly. And think back to Iran's goal, that victory parade.
Right. What happens now that they're still stuck in this kind of stalemate?
Well, does it just fuel more frustration on their end, too? Does it guarantee continued escalation?
It feels like it might, this prolonged ambiguity, this sense that maybe the U.S. isn't fully in control.
It creates a breeding ground for more instability, doesn't it? The
Yeah.
risk of miscalculation just goes way up.
Or just a long, grinding conflict because of all these contradictory signals.
Alarmingly high risk.
Okay, so let's try and recap the chaos we've walked through today.
It's a lot.
We've seen this unprecedented presidential frustration, almost desperation, in public.
Mm-hmm. Geopolitical objectives like regime change, that just didn't happen.
Terrifying nuclear brinkmanship, threats being thrown around casually.
And these public contradictions from world leaders that just seem to fuel, well, complete chaos.
It really paints a picture of a world where maybe traditional diplomacy is under immense strain.
Feeling increasingly frayed at the edges, perhaps.
Indeed. And it leaves you, the listener, with a pretty profound question to think about, doesn't it?
Hmm.
In a world where global leaders' public statements can be so wildly contradictory, where that line between, say, diplomacy and direct threats seems blurrier than ever, what fundamental shifts are we actually seeing in international power dynamics?
Yeah, and how might these sort of unpredictable behaviors reshape our whole understanding of global stability of trust in the years ahead?
Something to definitely mull over long after this deep dive is finished.